All right, everybody. Well, thank you for being here. We're here for Hiring Smart in Central New York, what growing organizations need to know about background screening. Today's presentation is brought to you by CIChecked, and we're with one of our partners today, CenterState CEO. So I'll keep an eye out on the waiting list here, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So a little bit about your panelists today. If you've been on one of our webinars before, you might recognize a couple of familiar faces, a couple of familiar voices. My name is Alex. I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator at CI. I've been here for about 4.5 years, and I specialize in turning hiring complexity into practical guidance. So thank you all for being here today. We're always happy to have you and provide this type of information to you. With me today are two experts in their respective industries, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So, Tom, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
You bet. Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the program. My name is Tom Hunter. I'm an account executive here with CIChecked. 17 years in the background screening industry, working with human resources and operations on building better background screening programs that really balance cost, speed, and due diligence. I'm excited about the conversation today because that really is the goal, is to show you all that it is possible to have that balance here in New York. So excited for the conversation. Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. And from CenterState, we have Andrew Jordan. So, Jordan, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, too?
Sure, not at all, Alex. Pleasure to be on. Well, hello to your audience. My name is Andrew Jordan, but all my friends call me Jordan. I am the Director of Member and Business Experience here at CenterState CEO. CIChecked are members of CenterState CEO. So really excited to participate in the conversation and talk about your services and offerings.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, Jordan. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So a little bit about CI, for those of you who don't know. We were founded in 2004, and we're a certified women-owned licensed private investigative agency that specializes in pre-employment background investigation. So background check company in layman's terms, essentially. You can see a couple of our stats up there on the screen right now, but one we're really proud of is that 98% client call pickup rate. So when you call us, you're going to get a human on the other line 98% of the time. Please go ahead once we get off here, try it. Give everybody a call at the same time. I'm sure 98% of you will get on. So please. We also were recognized on the HRO Today's Baker's Dozen list in 2024 and 2025. So if any of you clients are on the call right now, we really appreciate you taking the time to do that survey. We know it's not a short one, but it does mean a lot to us that we were able to be ranked there. And Jordan, I'm going to pass it over to you now. Would you mind telling everybody a little bit more about CenterState CEO if they're not familiar?
Sure. Thanks so much, Alex. I'm excited to connect with you and your audience. CenterState CEO is Central and Northern New York's Economic Development Agency and Chamber of Commerce. We're a member organization offering both great benefits to grow our members' network, increase their visibility, make meaningful connections, while also supporting our efforts to attract businesses to Central and Northern New York. And they also contribute to some amazing training programs, a lot of focus on construction and advanced manufacturing. It's a super exciting time for our community as we welcome the largest private investment in New York State's history, right in Clay, New York, where Micron is going to be building a state-of-the-art mega fab chip manufacturing plant.
Yes, thank you very much, Jordan. We've been members for almost 2 years now. We've got a really good relationship. So please, we'll give you some more information on where to find CenterState a little bit later. But if you're interested, please go check them out. They're a wonderful company. So today, we're here to talk about New York State and background screening specifically. So we're going to talk about why New York State is unique from the rest of the country in background screening and criminal searches. We'll talk about
Anyway.
how your
My God,
different
I
options.
still have you propped up like I can see you.
Talk about how your different options in New York State and what you can do to search criminal information here. We'll talk a little bit about the compliance landscape and some things that have changed in recent years, and then we'll give you some practical steps to walk away with. We should leave about 5 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll try to get to them live, or if we don't, we can do it at the end there. And then everybody on the call today will have access to the slide deck and the recording of this full thing. So we'll send it out in a couple of emails, a couple of days after we're done here today. Now, one note before we fully dive in. CIChecked and CenterState CEO, for that matter, are not law firms. None of us on the call here are lawyers. We're going to talk about some compliance-related information today, but please do not take this as legal advice. It is not legal advice. If you want to dive into any of these concepts a little bit further, we'd recommend you reach out to your legal counsel. If you don't have one of those, you can always reach out to us and we can refer you to a couple employment law firms that we work with in the state. But really, again, just make sure this is that you understand this is not legal advice. We're here to just give you a good understanding of what you need to be aware of when you go to do New York State searches. So I'm a marketer. I do have a couple of polls today, if you don't mind. And again, this isn't a gotcha moment. This isn't to give back to your employer or your boss and say, look what they said. But I'm interested in learning a little bit about what our audience is, what they're interested in as well, to help us kind of form our content strategy, talk about some things that we might want to work with. So I'm going to launch this first poll. And I want to ask, what does your organization currently use for New York State criminal checks? So do you use a state search, a county search, a national database, or maybe you're not totally sure what you use, and that's okay. Again, I'm not going to send any of this information back to anybody that would be consequence for you. But I'm a marketer and I love polls, and this is a great way to get some information from everybody. So I'll leave it up for just a couple of seconds. Looks like we got some good engagement here. Thank you very much for that. Last chance to enter. Okay, I'll end it here and we'll share results. So people aren't sure, and that's okay. And a little bit's leaning toward the national database, which is fine as well. So we're going to talk about a couple of different options today that will give you a little bit more insight into what you can look for in New York State. So thank you again for participating in that one here. Let me X that out. So we're going to start with the uniqueness of New York State. It's genuinely unlike any other state in the country. And most employers might not know that until something goes wrong. And that's not where we want you to be there. So, Tom, you've been in the industry for 17 years. You've been working with New York employers quite a bit. Do you mind kind of setting the stage for us for the New York court landscape?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. And before we dig into some particulars here, we really did want to set the stage just so we're all on the same page with what we mean by how unique New York is. So with respect to the New York background screening landscape, the same background screening rules that apply to so much of the rest of our country, they don't apply in New York. HR folks, operation folks in New York have a very unique challenge in making sure that the background checks they're running are aligned to how the state works. As you all, I'm sure all know, New York has its own compliance laws, its own regulatory requirements, and background check providers who treat New York like any other state will leave gaps with their clients' background check program. And those gaps are not, their issue. It becomes essentially your issue. In the next several slides, we'll go over what we mean by that. So we'll start first with just a broad overview of New York's court system. Excellent, I'm seeing that now. Thanks, Alex. Okay. In total, New York, of course, has 62 courts. What makes New York pretty unique is that each court maintains its own criminal record. So it is quite decentralized. Below each county level, you have local courts, village courts, town courts, city courts. And while that isn't necessarily unique to New York, what those courts contain in terms of misdemeanor conviction is quite unique. And we'll get to that in a moment. Now, above the county court level, you have New York State OCA. That's the state criminal search. County court information feeds up to the state. And in terms of the fee structure in New York, a per inquiry cost can be anywhere from $0 all the way up to $95. So this complexity is really what makes the next few slides so important. The search method you choose in New York really needs to be aligned with the way the state actually works. We'll hop to the next slide. Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Okay. So when we start with the comparison point between the three search options in New York, we love to start with this chart here. You ultimately have three options in New York. You'll see on the left-hand side, you can approach a background check here at the county level. The middle option, you have the New York State OCA. And then finally, a third option, which we will unblur momentarily, but we wanted to start with the first two categories first, because those tend to be what the industry is most often talking about. So we're going to walk through each of these over the next few slides so you can see exactly, some of the limitations here and some of the gaps and what they can mean to your organization. And our goal, by the time we wrap everything up, you'll understand why the search method in New York matters just as much as doing background checks at all. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Tom. Now, Jordan, I'm interested because we have you here and we might as well get your opinion. When you work with a lot of growing organizations, a lot of not necessarily startups, but they're growing pretty quickly. When members of CenterState come to you, does background screening ever come up in your conversations? Do they ever ask about that?
For sure, it does come up, Alex. Background screenings are an important tool to combat turnover and meet growing organizations' demands. And like you mentioned, lots of businesses are growing here and turning to the CenterState CEO network more than ever. Businesses and non-for-profits join CenterState CEO to tap into the services of other members. And CIChecked is a great example of joining and highlighting their services to other members who can find tremendous value in those offerings.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the insight there. So we have our current structure, and we know it's more complex than any other state. Most employers, about the ones that we talk to, are using what's called the OCA, the Office of Court Administration, and that's that state search that Tom just mentioned there. So, Tom, you mentioned there's a $95 per name fee on that one. Can we go through the OCA search and what people are actually getting from when they search that database?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. So as a quick introduction, the OCA is the Office of Court Administration, and we do really want to stress it is New York's, it's the state criminal search in New York. It's the primary source search in New York, and it's what most employers use. But here's the thing: it does have some limitations that a lot of employers, they're really just not aware of. And we do note quite a few of these on the slide. I did want to quickly reference a few. First, the cost. You'll notice that the per inquiry fee here is $95 per name. And for those of you who look at your background check invoice, you'll see that $95 adds up quick. 100 background checks a year, it's $9,500 just for the New York criminal piece, just those fees to the OCA. The other item we like to call out is with the OCA state search, you do have limitations with lack of fuzzy name logic, meaning you have to search the exact name. We give some alias examples here on our slide, but I'll use myself as an example. My legal name is Thomas. Here at CIChecked, I go by Tom. My friends call me Tommy. So if you're running a background check on me, which name are you going to choose? I hope nothing falls through the cracks, in other words. So we do give you a lot of great examples here. And then you'll also note there are some types of misdemeanor convictions not included with the OCA. And really to stress the frequency of updates, the OCA is updated around weekly from the lower level county sources. So it isn't real time. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, and going in that same vein, my full name's Alexander, but I go by Alex, and my friends call me some different stuff too. I won't say it on this call, but yeah, I'm sure we all have that same type of thing there. Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of money to pay for background screening, and that's the fees are going straight to New York State, right? They're not coming to us; they're going to the New York State government, right? So, Jordan, I'm going to bring you back in here. I assume that a lot of employers you talk to might be sick and tired of this fee, like a lot of employers that we talk to as well. Are organizations aware of this going into background screening, or is it more of when they look at the first invoice and go, what the heck is going on? What have you understood from your members and the people you talk to?
Sure. I mean, as you mentioned, that is some serious savings, Alex, and most aren't aware of these limitations, or there might be some opportunities there. They treat background checks as routine and locked in at a certain price point. And our membership portfolio is very diverse and varied, and we always love it when organizations add value to our network in new and unexpected ways. And CIChecked is a great example.
Thank you. Thank you. So we talked about the OTA, but this is where it really starts to get weird. Okay. Maybe you don't want to pay the $95 per name, right? And you say, okay, well, we don't want to go to state. Let's just go to the specific county that that person has lived in, or the number of different counties that they've lived in. A lot of people assume it's a more direct route. It might be a little bit easier, maybe a little bit quicker. But Tom, would you mind coming back in and explaining to us what county criminal searches in New York actually cover?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And I agree with your point. This is where things do get a bit different here in terms of the court structure. Um, First, a call out with regard to the fee range in New York with county courts across the 62 counties. That cost can be $0 for the search fee, all the way up to $95 per name. And that's what we're showing you here on this map. That aside, there is a very critical gap that we're always stressing to HR folks we're working with, operation folks that we're working with. County criminal courts in New York do not hear misdemeanor cases. Those cases are stored, as I noted earlier, at the lower level courts, so the local town or village courts. So if you are relying on a background check package that is county court based, you may be opening yourself up to gaps in the type of information that is being reported out to you. And those are not theoretical gaps. On the next slide, we do have a table of misdemeanor convictions that we have found that wouldn't have been found otherwise in a conventional county court background check. So these aren't edge cases. These are very real misdemeanor convictions. Just to name a few: forcible touching, endangering the welfare of a child, reckless endangerment, criminal possession of a weapon. We work quite often with regulated entities, financial services, healthcare, nonprofits, working with vulnerable populations. Looking at this chart, these are certainly conviction types those entities need to be aware of to make a well-informed hiring decision. And quite often when we are consulting with companies, they come to us, CIChecked, can you match our package? It's a county court-based package. That's where the education really starts. It's our feeling that the industry is not doing that, but simply saying, hey, we might be able to save you in costs by focusing at the county court level, but it's at the expense of this type of information. So certainly something to be aware of. Thanks, Alex.
Jordan, I'm sure there's a little bit of overlap with some of the industries that Tom mentioned in CenterState CEO's members, and you got a chance to kind of look at these slides beforehand in our prep calls and everything. But what was your kind of first reaction when you kind of looked through some of these and realized that, oh man, some of my members might not be getting this information if they're not necessarily doing the correct court searches?
Sure. I mean, my biggest takeaway is I agree 100%. You know, we have robust representation in the very industries mentioned above. Not only are they here and engaged, but they are also growing. They need these types of services now more than ever, if you ask me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I do have one more poll here. Let me pull it up here. And again, this isn't to necessarily be a gotcha moment, but I'm just interested in learning what our clients and what our prospects are hearing. Were you aware that New York's county criminal searches missed some of these misdemeanor records? And again, this isn't to say gotcha. This isn't to give you any grief at work, just for me to understand that what businesses in New York are hearing and understanding. So I'll leave it up for a little bit longer, but I think we have a runaway answer here with this one. We'll give it a couple more seconds. We got a lot of our attendees participation. I love that. Thank you very much for participating. It's always good. Let me end it there. So we got a clear winner. No, this was news to you, and a number of us are a little intuitive and felt that there's something was off. I wasn't quite sure. So this is a little bit of confirmation for you. So I'm glad we did this presentation today. This is one of our big takeaways that we wanted to talk about. We'll be sure to make some more content on this information, and there are a number of different things on our website that you can check out if you wanted to learn more about the uniqueness of New York State County Courts specifically. Let me X that out. So the OCA is expensive. County criminal court searches don't necessarily catch everything. What should a New York employer be looking for? What's the answer here, right? Well, at CI, we've been fortunate enough to come up with sort of a proprietary product. We call it CIChecked. A little bit of backstory. Back in 1999, a number of New York State law enforcement agencies came to the president of CIChecked. Her name is Michelle Pyan, basically saying, hey, we have this great repository of arrest and booking records. We know it's valuable, but we don't really know what to do with it. Do you have any ideas? And Michelle immediately thought that this would be a great way to kind of get around that fee. And back in 1999, the fee was closer to, I think, $30 or $40 per name. Now it's got all the way up to 95. They keep raising it, not every year, but consistently every couple of years it goes up. So Michelle with New York State law enforcement tested it, perfected it for about 12 years. And then in 2011, we launched it at CI here. So basically, it's a pre-screening tool that New York employers can use to determine when or if additional research is needed. All right, so we charge $32.50 per name. We're able to look at this database and say if there is arrest or booking records. If there's not, the search is compliant, and you can move on with the rest of the check. You don't have to pay New York State anything for that information. Oh, excuse me. In 2025, another 14 years later, we have plenty of data to kind of go off of, and we found that around almost 90% of our searches come back the same day, and around 8.5 to 9 out of every 10 searches we do with CIChecked comes back clear. So you're good to go. You can close the book on that, and we can move on. That 1 to 1.5, you do have to do something called what I call double dipping, where you have to pay both fees, the $32.50 and the $95. But over time, that savings quickly adds up and becomes a real cost saver for a lot of businesses. So, Tom, we had the blurred version of our comparison chart earlier. Let's unblur, and would you kind of go through the full comparison so everybody can get a good understanding of what's going on?
Absolutely. This is my favorite slide, Alex. I've been doing the background check thing for a long time, and New York, I think, is a very, very challenging topic for a lot of background screeners. And it was just refreshing to see this alternative state criminal search being offered, because truly it is a balance between cost, speed, and due diligence. So now with this chart, you have a true comparison between the county option and its limitations, the state option and some of those limitations, and New York Check, which shores up those preceding gaps. And just to call out a few, first, the search fee for New York Check is $32.50. It's a 66% reduction in the fee requirement. And that is a real line item you can put on your budget. Those are real meaningful cost savings. The next item here is that fuzzy name logic we were talking about earlier. New York Check includes that. So the name variations, New York Check includes the Thomases, the Toms, the Tommies, the Alexes and the Alexanders. And we can certainly tell stories and share case studies, but we have found conviction history the OCA would have otherwise missed because of our fuzzy name logic and how that works with New York Check. Now, with respect to speed, 2 items to mention. The turnaround time for New York Check, it's same day, really within a couple of business hours, you have your background check returned. But also, the frequency in which information is updated within New York Check from the county level is in near real time. It's hourly. So compare that to weekly updates on the OCA side. We're potentially hitting the finish line faster with some of those court updates. And that's really a degree of speed and accuracy you can only get with New York Check. And with regard to the cost savings, for instance, for a CenterState CEO member running 100 background checks a year, the savings compared to the OCA alone is over $6,200. So again, it's a real meaningful line item you can put on your budget. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, and that was a great segue. So Jordan, let's bring you back in. I mean, you're working with a lot of growing organizations, and I certainly don't expect you to try to sell NY Tech to them. But when you see this type of cost savings, what would that mean to some of those organizations that you're talking to that might be sick and tired of those state fees?
Sure. I mean, I feel every dollar matters now more than ever, Alex. Value is a major driving force, not just in central and northern New York, but nationwide. It is such a win-win to use CICheck's member benefits to introduce them to parties who would benefit from their services and procedures. CICheck benefits, the person we introduce them to benefits from the savings, and we're all about win-wins here at CenterState CEO.
Perfect. Perfect. We're aligned there for sure. So I have our last poll here today, and this is more just for right so we can understand what matters most to you, to your organization when evaluating a screening provider. Is it cost, turnaround time, the comprehensiveness of the coverage, or is it the client support that you might receive from that provider? Oh, we got an interesting split here to start. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, almost everybody who's answered. I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. I know we're coming up on time here too, so we'll be quick here. But it looks like the comprehensive coverage portion won this one, which is awesome, which is great to hear. Turnaround time and cost are always considerations. We're always worried about those two as well, but good to hear that most people in this conversation would like that comprehensive coverage more than anything there. So I'll stop here. And then really quickly, I know we're coming up on time here, but I just have to mention some compliance issues. There's the changes in the compliance landscape that's happened in New York State recently. So the big one is the New York Clean Slate Act. This was signed into law in November of 2024. The Office of Court Administration is the one that's handling the changes, and they have until November of 2027 to go back and implement some of these changes. So Clean Slate Act basically means that conviction records that are eligible to be sealed will be after a certain time frame. So it's 3 years for misdemeanors and 8 years for felonies. The clock starts the day that person was released from incarceration. So if they're not convicted within either one of those time frames, that record is going to be sealed from their next background check, and we won't be able to access it. Now, there are certain exclusions for certain industries and then certain convictions, like you see down here, where violent felonies, sex offenses, or Class A felonies will always remain available to be seen. But if you ran a background check 3 years ago on somebody and are doing maybe annual reruns or something like that, that might look a little bit different than what you've seen last time. So employers are kind of switching to a little bit more of a skills-based interview process where they're more concerned if the person can show the ability to do the job versus disqualifying them for a conviction record there. We have a lot of good content on Clean Slate on our website, but again, this would be something to talk to your legal counsel about if you really want to dive in. And then quickly, ban the box and fair chance. Most of you are probably familiar with ban the box. It just means that you can't ask for conviction information until after you've given a conditional job offer. Now, that's kind of the standard way that a lot of employers have started to formalize their interview and onboarding process, where we say, hey, we want to hire you. You did great, but you have to pass a background check. After that point, you can go crazy, ask about as many, any kind of criminal conviction that you want. But again, not until that conditional job offer has happened. Fair chance is a little bit different. Still requires you to give a conditional job offer before the criminal background check. Fair chance is a New York City specific law. So if you're working, hiring, or have a job in New York City, you'd want to be compliant with this. But basically, it makes us as the provider do what's called a bifurcated background check, where we have to do the criminal portion the very last. So we have to do our identity validation, any verifications, MVRs, credit checks, everything has to come before the criminal check. And all of these are just to give people with criminal records a better chance at employment. And again, we have a ton of content on our website for all of this. Please go visit us if you really want to know that. So, Jordan, I'm interested in particularly Clean Slate because it's pretty new, and I don't want to say employers have been freaking out about it, but a lot of them are concerned. Have you heard any CenterState CEO members ask about it at all in your conversation?
I mean, not nearly enough, Alex. That's part of the reason I wanted to be on this call. The industries who would benefit most are a part of our network. There's so much potential both for the orgs that would be aware and also with the small to mid-sized businesses and non-for-profits who present a huge opportunity for this service.
Yeah, absolutely. It's becoming as the time as clock ticks, it's becoming more and more important as we get to that 2027 cutoff date there. So thank you. And then just very quickly, the last thing, we'll give you some walkaways, some takeaways. The first thing we'd recommend is ask your current provider what your New York search includes. We said earlier we saw not everybody necessarily knows what they're doing for New York State. So ask, like Tom mentioned, if it covers those lower level courts where those misdemeanors are hiding. We then ask you to just check your job applications. There's a couple of different things with BandaBox where you also have to collect consent and authorization and disclosure separate from the job application. So just making sure you're compliant there while you're getting that introductory information. And then of course, if you are looking to set up a background check program or already have one and want enhancements, we offer no obligation assessments, especially for CenterState CEO members, to kind of understand where you stand and to find out some of those gaps there. So we do have one question in our chat already. And Stacy asked, and Tom, this might be best for you, is this, I assume the county court criminal issue, only an issue in New York, or do other states have the same problem?
That's an awesome question. Yeah, we're right up on time, but I was like typing in my answer, but I'll jump on that quick. It's a very good question. It's a question not unique to New York. It is a consideration, and you do need to be aware of in all states you're doing background checks in, and that's really where you're leaning on your provider to understand and balance data sources, the approach they're taking with respect to primary source verification of criminal records, like how they're approaching court systems, data sources, and what they might be utilizing with respect to third-party database vendors. That is to say, there are multiple states that are fairly complicated. Texas, Michigan are fairly complicated states. I don't know if they're as decentralized as New York, but certainly it is something to be aware of in all states you're doing background checks in, and to lean on your provider, audit your background check program, and understand how they're approaching county court searches, how they're approaching state searches, to see if there are potential gaps with what your provider potentially deems as commercially readily available versus best practice. And so those are some of the balancing acts the industry takes a look at. So certainly worth an audit of your program if you do have concerns in some of those states, and we'd always welcome any questions on that. But long story short, there are some fairly complicated states out there that you do need to be aware of how you're approaching the background check for sure.
If you're in New York, we all know New York has their own mind with a lot of different things. So also something to watch out for here. So we are over. Oh, we have one more. Do we have another question? No. Okay. So we are over time here. I apologize about that, but thank you for sticking with us. If you want to learn more about CIChecked, you can go on our website, call us, email us, send us a carrier pigeon, whatever else. We'll find out the best way for you. Jordan, tell us a little bit about where to either contact you or learn more about CenterState or anything that you might want to say here before we sign off.
Oh, please, highly encourage everyone, drop by CenterStateCEO.com. We just released our annual report for 2025. But yeah, lots of great material. You can just check out Meet the Team page. You'll see myself and the membership team listed along with our emails. So lots of positive things happening, Central New York, Northern New York, and New York as a whole.
Thank you very much. They're a fantastic company. Jordan, thank you for being on today. We really appreciate it. If anybody has any other questions, please reach out, but we appreciate you spending half an hour with us today. Again, you'll get the slides and the recording in a couple of days, and we appreciate you here. Thank you. Thank you for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Tom.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all.